At long last, the time has finally come for me to cover Shada, or as Tom Baker says, Shada! I've been really sick for over a month now, and the doctor's best guess was originally strep throat or bronchitis, but then it turned into laryngitis or pharyngitis, but now they're thinking it could be glandular fever, so who knows, but whatever it was, it gave me one heck of a painful throat and tongue for weeks and weeks and weeks, and just felt like it would never end, and technically still hasn't. At least now I finally got my voice back, but needless to say, standing in front of a camera yapping for over an hour, making these videos, tends to hurt my voice even on a good day, so that's why this took so long to finally happen. Well, that and some other fun problems I bet you can't wait to hear all about, but first, it is finally time to bid farewell to my horrible opening title sequence. Take it away, past me. Oh, I cannot wait to never use that cringy intro ever again. If you want to skip this next ramble, jump to this point here. I won't mind. You good? Alright, 3, 2, 1. Back in 2021, when I decided to start reviewing Classic Who, I hadn't had anything to do with the series in well over 4 years, so there wasn't much of a nostalgic connection, and admittedly, I didn't really have that much investment in the old show. As a result, I kind of just assumed it would all be camp and cheesy, which, to be fair, a lot of it is, but sometimes that's why we love it so much. And anyways, so that led me to create this deliberately cringe-inducing introduction as a homage to what I thought was the source material. But, boy, I have regretted it a lot over the last 3 years. I even put a post up on my YouTube community tab a while ago confessing how much I had grown to despise it. Although all your lovely comments were genuinely heartwarming, I am very pleased there were so many of you who managed to appreciate what I was trying to do with it, making it deliberately cringeworthy. And to be fair, I did intentionally make it 20 seconds long so that if you skipped forward on your phone or the TV, it would go forward in 10-second chunks, but it didn't really help. But after 108 reviews spent hearing it, it worked a little too well, and now I hate it and regret continuing it past season 1. Maybe I will soften up to it one day, but oh man, it's just so annoying, and even I skip it anytime I have to return to one of my reviews for whatever reason. So long and good riddance. No idea what I'm gonna do next. Right, now that little rant is over and done with, it's time for another one that totally won't take up half the video's runtime. We're getting there, I promise, but I thought for sure my problems watching classic Doctor Who were over and done with. The missing episode reconstructions were done. I survived the abysmal Daily Motion era. Because, thank goodness, pretty much all of Classic Who is now up on someone's internet archive. And I pretty much have a good chunk of the rest of the classic series on DVD and Blu-ray, so nothing to worry about, right? But the last thing I expected was for a random disc on one of these Classic Who collection releases to be faulty. That's right, you heard me. Faulty. And not in the same way as the numerous documented cases of entire waves of Classic Who collection releases requiring replacement discs to be sent out to customers due to on-disc errors and inconsistencies. Also, for what it's worth, we finally got the Classic Collection Season 20 Blu-ray available in New Zealand a full year after everywhere else in the world. Thanks, Disney. But you want to know what's great about this one? It's a brick. It won't come out. This isn't the problem we're dealing with today. This is a problem for future me. And no, not the good old-fashioned randomly region-restricted DVDs either. No, this is a brand new Blu-ray disc compatible in my region as part of a set where everything else works just fine, just doesn't function properly. This is the first time I have ever seen this error message show up on my PlayStation 5. DVD, Blu-ray, CD, incompatible game disc, doesn't matter. I've never seen this. It just straight up refuses to work on my PlayStation 5. Thankfully, it does eventually load up on my PS4 for some reason, after a good minute and a half of trying to read the disc. But even then, it'll occasionally glitch up and freeze, completely bricking it and essentially crashing the application, like it's a 20-year-old scratched up DVD that you rented from the video hire store. Oh, and guess which disc it is? Oh, well, obviously you already know it's going to be Shada. But which Shada? Why, it's only the quote-unquote definitive edition exclusive to this collector's set. Not the VHS version, or the DVD, or the standard Blu-ray. Oh no, the only exclusive disc to be exclusive to a classic collection box set. How crap is my luck? The only way to watch the definitive edition, and it doesn't work. Oh, and that's another thing. Rant number 3 incoming. Like I said, there are timestamps available if you want to skip ahead. At the end of my previous review of The Horns of Nimon, I lamented the fact that I had to watch 3 versions of Shada, because I was under the impression that's how many there were, and because I went through the effort of watching both animated Power of the Dalek adaptations and thoroughly comparing the two back in the day, so I wanted to do the same here. But why is this so convoluted? For real, when trying to search the simple question of how many versions of Shada are there, I am met with wildly inconsistent results. Some say 3, some 4, some even more. There's a great YouTube video out there. It's nice and short, and it goes over many of the different versions of Shada, but I am fairly certain that video is outdated by now. So from my best guess, this is how many there are. Alright, there's the early unofficial novelization and then the official novelization, but we won't count those. So you've got the original VHS release, the DVD release, the Blu-ray release, the exclusive definitive edition collection release, the Paul McGann audio adventure, and the abridged flash animation also featuring Paul McGann. Now, those are all confirmed releases, yes. But I've seen, while searching online and in physical media booklets and DVD covers, that there's a 4-part version and an omnibus version. Now, I'm pretty sure that those two are included in that big list that I just mentioned. Like, I assume the 4-parter is the Paul McGann flash animation, but I've no idea what the omnibus one is. But, on top of that, some versions feature linking narration by Tom Baker, and some feature our usual modern-day animated segments. But rather than animate the whole serial like other missing stories from the 60s, they just animated the scenes that weren't originally filmed back in '79. Trust me, we'll get there as well. So, that should make it easier, right? I mean, one's animated, one's narration. Why then can I not figure out, as a first-time viewer, what is on which disc? Why are there different versions of the different versions? My DVD copy that came as part of the Legacy collection has 2 discs. So I thought, right, this must be whatever is considered the DVD version. But when you put disc 1 into the machine, it comes up with the option to play 1992 VHS version, which I assumed the 1992 VHS version was either the omnibus movie or a 4-parter. So I check the case and it doesn't say anything on the back or in the sleeve about a VHS version. And then I go right underneath that to episode selection, and there's 6 episodes featured. In retrospect, it makes perfect sense, but for a newcomer who is aware of the fact that there are different versions, but doesn't know which version is which, the wording really confused me. Again, doesn't say anything anywhere about any VHS version. On the inside, it just mentions restoration from 1992 version, which I guess, you know, I should have put two and two together, right? The 1992 is the VHS, but I thought they were different. Why not just have the standard play all option? Why say play 1992 VHS release? I mean, isn't this a DVD? Is the Legacy DVD version the same as the 1992 VHS version? Yes, apparently. But at the time I didn't know that, so I think to myself, okay, maybe disc 1 is VHS version, and disc 2 is whatever this DVD is. So I put disc 2 in and know it's just more special features. Right, so back to disc 1, and because Flash animation is no longer supported in web browsers, you can't watch the BBC iPlayer Flash animation Paul McGann version. But there's this really great YouTube tutorial that takes you through these seemingly simple but probably more complicated than necessary steps to get it to work on your computer. But oh no, because for whatever reason they decided to stop making laptops with disk drives in them years ago, so fudge me, I guess. No Paul McGann for you. Oh no. Okay, so surely the Blu-ray collection will make sense, right? I mean, these are arguably going to be the last time we see these classics released. You know, the definitive article, if you will, so surely it'll make sense. Why are there two discs that both say Shada? Alright, let me consult the booklet. Right. One disc has the definitive edition, the other one has the 1992 VHS version, the 2017 DVD/Blu-ray version, but not the Paul McGann version. Okay, so the Legacy DVD version is the VHS version. But the 2017 version that was animated was released on DVD and Blu-ray, but is different from the original Legacy DVD. But what about the Blu-ray? Is the 2017 version the same as the one on the collection? But if they're both animated, then what's the difference? What makes the collection one definitive? Are the animations different? Like, did they redo the whole thing like Power of the Daleks did? Or is the definitive edition just the 2017 version, but with the live-action cameo at the end? Wait, the 2017 DVD and Blu-ray version, which is different to the original DVD and new Blu-ray editions, is a feature-length movie presentation? So is that the omnibus version? So does that mean it's shorter, abridged, therefore missing scenes? So does that mean that the new 2021 definitive edition is longer and complete and features new animation, and it doesn't fucking work for me? Yes, it's all quite simple. It says it all right here in this little booklet. Is what I bet some of you are saying. So yes, the information is technically in the collection booklet, but my goodness, with all the wildly different terminology and inconsistent information between people online and in physical media, it made things so excruciatingly difficult for me to understand as a newcomer wanting to watch and compare all versions to understand. Oh man, the hat broke. And I've still got a full season of Tom Baker stories left to review. I think it's time to sit down. That's better, isn't it? Sorry about the echoey audio. So, all that confusion and research combined with being sick over the span of a month on top of never really being in the mood for it, combined with forcing myself to actually sit down and watch it instead of doing something else because it's been over a month since my last review. Yeah, hopefully you can sympathise with my plight, and to why this video is so damn long, and why I decided to only watch two versions instead of every version, just to point out whatever minuscule changes there were. I thought there were 3 versions, but there ain't. Right, I believe there's a 6-part 1992 release with Tom Baker narration, which is featured on the VHS, the Legacy DVD, and disc 7 of the Blu-ray collection. 1 hour and 49 minutes. There's a 2003 webcast version featuring Paul McGann with basic flash animation. I'm not sure how the length thing works, as I couldn't find any definitive runtime, but maybe you just clicked along with the audio. Then the Big Finish extended audio drama that was 6 parts, or one long 2.5-hour version, which also confused me because it was sometimes referred to as feature length, but I suppose those two can be lumped in together. Then the 2017 release, which had a 2-disc DVD, a 2-disc Blu-ray, and a 3-disc Steelbook Blu-ray. But the main feature on all of them was the movie-length omnibus version that runs for about 2 hours and 18 minutes, and this is where we get our first animated segments. Now, at this point of writing the script for this video, it was 9:30 p.m, and I had been typing for an hour, and to be extra sure of what I was saying, I popped in disc 7 of the collection to check out the advertised 2017 version, but something didn't line up. First of all, the live-action Tom Baker cameo at the end was included, which I thought was weird because I was under the impression that that was a 2021 exclusive. That, however, is not the case, and I just straight up got that one particular bit of information wrong. My bad. However, in another round of research on the topic, I found this awesome website called Nothing at the End of the Lane, which has numerous articles and pages on pages of in-depth information and interviews with people directly involved, specifically regarding the restorations. And it's through this web page and a further hour of reading, researching, checking, comparing with my collection Blu-ray that I can definitively state that the so-called 2017 version advertised on disc 7 of the classic collection is in fact not the identical version from 2017, and in fact contains slightly altered and updated animation used for the new 2021 definitive edition. Because, yes, apparently there were a few mistakes in the original 2017 animation, and the animators wanted to add a few additional elements to flesh out the scenes but ran out of time, leading credence to my theory that a lot of these 60s missing episode animations could be a lot better if given more time, not necessarily more budget. Although, not gonna lie, both would be preferable. So, for the Season 17 Classic Collection Blu-ray release, they went back, fixed those tiny animation errors, and added more elements like pedestrians in certain shots, and even did entirely new animated segments for the definitive edition. But then they also used that updated animation and retroactively inserted it into the 2017 version on disc 7. So the disc 7 2017 version isn't identical to the actual 2017 release, but from what I can tell, only because of updated animation. I assume it's the same length and doesn't include any additional animated segments from the 6-part definitive edition. If it wasn't for my confusion regarding the live-action cameo at the end, I wouldn't have even noticed this slight discrepancy. And again, it really doesn't matter, but I'm just telling you all this anyway to emphasize why it was so confusing to me. I'm very aware of the echoey audio, and I apologize profusely, but this is already going to take several days to record, and I'm still sick, so I just need to sit down. So, going back to what I was saying before my 20th ramble, 2 novelizations, 2 Paul McGann versions, 1 flash animation, 1 Big Finish audio adventure. The 1992 6-part version with linking narration on VHS, Legacy DVD, and disc 3 of the 2017 Steelbook Blu-ray, but not the standard edition DVD and Blu-ray, and on disc 7 of the collection. The 2017 feature-length edit with animation and the Tom Baker cameo, which came out on DVD, Blu-ray, and Steelbook Blu-ray, then was included on disc 7 of the collection, but with updated animation. And finally, the definitive edition, which is exclusive to the Season 17 Collection Blu-ray set on disc 6, which is in 6 parts with updated and additional animation. The only real difference I can tell between the 2021 Definitive Edition and the 2019 version is that it's a six-parter rather than a continuous omnibus movie, and they obviously animated a few more segments to add to the runtime using unused audio from the 2017 voiceover sessions that weren't animated for that release. As I've said, I assumed the live-action end cameo was exclusive to the collection, and that's why they called it definitive. But as I said, I was way off. So it is slightly longer, and, well, yeah, I'd say it really is, by definition, the definitive way of watching Shada. Now, all that being said, I can totally see why some people say there's only two versions. The narration version and the animated version. Because the differences between all the other releases are so minuscule. Like, technically 2017 and 2021 are different, but they both feature animated segments, so they just get lumped in together. And, while it's easy to discount novelizations, because, you can't watch them, a lot of people seem to ignore or just forget about the Ninth Doctor versions. Because, again, they're not in live action. Fair enough, I guess. This has been a major headache. What was initially one line in my notes that read, Shada ×3 ? Turned into hours of research and a 10:30 p.m. script writing session just to cover the first third of this video. And even now, while filming it, I know I'm going to have to split this up into multiple days because I've got a headache. It's only 8 degrees today and I'm sitting here sweating. It's just, I'm still sick. And I'm tired of being sick. All of this could have been completely avoided if the information available was reliable and consistent, but it's not. Now, I'm not claiming to be the first or only one to definitively prove and catalogue each damn released version of Shada, but given the wildly differing info on FanWiki, TARDIS Fandom Wiki, Bigger on the Inside Fandom Wiki, Reddit posts, Wikipedia, official BBC product info, search results, inquiries into physical media collector groups on Facebook, general searches, and even printed on physical booklets and DVD case sleeves themselves, I am finally confident that I've got everything covered, despite not getting to watch all of them. Although, for what it's worth, one of those wikis has straight up factually incorrect information. But do you think for the life of me I could find it again the day after I read it? Nope. And one final example of how frustratingly difficult this was is the naming conventions. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but why are there so many different titles and words used to describe the same versions? The Ninth Doctor audio is technically a Big Finish production, but it's always just referred to as the audio play or audio adventure. And it doesn't help that in some cases it's been retitled to The Return to Shada. And the animated version of that version, sometimes it's called the webcast version, or the Flash animation, or the BBC version, or confusingly just 2003 or 2003 animated version. How long is it? How does it work? How different is it from the audio version? I don't know, because I literally can't find out. Then you've got the first live-action release, essentially the 1992 version, often called the 1992 VHS version, which has the linking narration, but sometimes doesn't contain the Tom Baker intro, and sometimes does or doesn't have the little BBC continuity spot at the start. The 2017 version, having 3 releases at the time, but with the steelbook containing different special features, and versions not actually being the same version on the collection Blu-ray? Is it feature length, a movie, an omnibus, all of the above or none at all? And where's this 4-parter? Is there even a 4-part adaptation? Does it exist? Or was it just the planned restructuring of the serial back in 1980 before it was cancelled and no 4-part version was ever actually released? And finally, the definitive edition. Or is it the exclusive edition? It's 6 parts, yes. It's animated, yes. It has the option to include the 1992 Tom Baker intro, yes. Right, good, definitive. And don't even get me started on the different scenes used in the 5 Doctors. Ugh. So maybe one day we'll get the 4K exclusive definitive BBC live-action feature-length 6-part omnibus extended abridged 4-part animated webcast with optional Tom Baker intro, cameo, and Paul McGann audio with Flash integration steelbook deluxe edition with a bonus disc containing the 1992, 2003, 2017, 2021, and 2029 Laserdisc vinyl release featuring David Tennant, Nicholas Briggs as K9, and an AI Elizabeth Sladen. Is that all of them? What do you mean there's an unwatchable, fan-funded Ian Levine animation? Should we start the review now? Maybe I'll get back to it when I'm older and wiser. Well, I'm certainly older, because it was my birthday yesterday, but I don't necessarily feel any wiser. Anyway, Shada is the mythical, unfinished Doctor Who serial that was supposed to cap off season 17, bringing us from 1979 into 1980. Originally conceived as a 6-parter, production was ultimately shut down due to several ongoing strikes in the industry. Despite the production team's best efforts, they were unsuccessful in completing the story. There's a lot more information you can look up about it, but what I've just said is basically the gist of it. You could also watch the brilliant behind-the-scenes documentary that's included on pretty much every physical release, and on YouTube, called The Making and Breaking of Shada. Or is it called Taken at a Time? Or is it called... No, we are not doing that again. Back when I was blissfully unaware of what I was about to get into, and back when I was still really sick, I decided to start off with the 1992 VHS version that was included on my Legacy DVD. The one with the Tom Baker intro and narration. Because I was sick as a brick and kind of forcing myself to watch it, I fell asleep exactly halfway through. Just like old times. Although I did wake up again right at the very end, just in time to have the one big character twist reveal spoiled for me. Fast forward a couple of weeks and a couple of doctor's appointments, a couple of blood tests, a couple of days off work, and all that fun stuff, and I finally found myself running out of superfluous Doctor Who material to upload, so I'm like, right, time to take another crack at it. Few hours of trying to figure out which version I was going to watch next, only to ultimately decide to settle on the exclusive collection definitive edition and all but give up on my plans of watching every available version. And cue the definitive edition disc problems, and I finally get to sit down and watch Shada. What are we, like 10-15 minutes into this video? Rather than doing a play-by-play of the plotline like I do sometimes, I'll just do my usual recapping of noteworthy things to save from dragging this video out any longer. Right, Shada. What initially surprised me the most was just how much of it was already completed. I'd say a good 75–80% of it was done and dusted. All location shots were filmed, so they just had to finish up in the studio. They really were so close to getting it done, even as a compromised 4-parter. It's insane to think about how it went down, but yeah, the stuff that they couldn't film really was crucial to the story. You couldn't edit around it. I can only imagine how devastated the cast and crew must have been, especially since this was meant to be the showrunner's final serial. And the behind-the-scenes documentary confirms it. And to steal a sentiment from that behind-the-scenes doco that I 150 bajillion% agree with, the reason that the loss and the love of Shada has endured for decades, and what sets it apart from other various missing 60s episodes, is that they knew that this story was something special. The script was worth seeing through to completion. And despite my usual nitpicks that I'll no doubt go on to mention, I do agree that we are better off having a completed version of Shada. It ain't perfect, but hey, if given the chance back in the day, this could very well have gone on to become a classic. I mean, if City of Death can be a classic. Right, let's have a run through, shall we? For some reason in my notes, I have written that some of the music in the first half of the story was quite unfitting. Like it was too epic for what was actually going on screen. Except that was a note I wrote when I watched the 1992 version for the first time. But when it came time for me to revisit it and watch the 2021 version, I didn't notice that at all. So maybe I was just tripping. And to clarify, I do mean the original music, not the newly composed incidental score that was inserted into the missing scenes done in our modern day. But one thing I can confirm for any version is the wildly inconsistent sound volume, at least through headphones. Both the Dolby surround sound and the original mono audio have the same issue, where the ADR voice lines and certain sound effects are way louder than everything else. I know I have a running joke in my channel where I talk about the overly loud sound effect, but in this case it wasn't just one, it was like a lot of them. Switching from surround back to mono did help a little bit equalise the volumes, but it's still not perfect. Which is a shame, because in the rare occasion that I do actually watch a Blu-ray copy of a classic Doctor Who serial that I don't own on DVD, I like to give the surround sound a go first try. It's not like the optional modern CGI effects, because I kind of want to get the original experience with, you know, the old archaic effects before eventually revisiting it and seeing what they can come up with for the Blu-ray releases, or even the DVD releases and such. But I'm not that much of an audiophile, so, like, you know, surround sound is good for me first time. I mean, I might as well, since I've got these stupidly overpriced official Sony PlayStation branded 3D sound headphone things that just fall apart within a year. This is my third pair. They are, like, glued together. But enough about sound. We've got to talk about this story's iconic villain. Behold, the scary silver balloon! Fear the floating orb! No, but seriously, the effects work done on it is really good. I mean, I know it's a simple sphere, but even the most basic of effects in classic Doctor Who can be quite jank and incredibly dated by today's standards. So whether it was done in 1979 or 1992, the circle looks good. What doesn't look as good is the real main villain's taste in fashion. It is so hard to take him seriously as a threat in that getup, in that heinous handbag. And how I thought my fashion sense was terrible. Nah, the villain's great, super menacing, and played to perfection, even if he sticks out like a sore thumb on the streets of Cambridge. So, what's the Doctor, Leela, and K9 up to this time? Well, they're answering a distress signal of sorts from an old Time Lord friend of the Doctor's, where they essentially have to track down a super secret book that's not a book. And again, the writing is excellent, with some small examples of cool time travel shenanigans, with the Doctor discovering that he has, in fact, visited his friend several times before, but in his future. So he has no memory of it, because he himself hasn't done it yet, but a future version of himself has, and it's just neat. But the one time he had previously visited in another incarnation, the person he was visiting didn't know who he was. It's kind of like the whole the Doctor meeting Riversong out of order thing, only it's just a subtle throwaway line that I just really like. So is Romana's quick line, where she refers to herself as a child, reading books as a time tot. So you've got time tots and time lords. Do you have time teenagers? Do they grow up to be time millennials, time boomers, time midlife crises? The writing continues to be strong, with some clever dialogue throughout. I found myself actually chuckling a fair few times, not just at the usual slapstick, but at genuinely amusing quips.
A. No, it doesn't begin with A. B. C?
Get it? They said BBC, because I thought it was funny. Moving on, Romana sends some random stranger into the TARDIS without a second thought. That is an awful lot of trust to put in some student that you've just met. Remember back in the 60s, when breaking into the TARDIS used to be a villain's entire motivation for a story? Nowadays, Romana's out here giving out guided tours. Though, to be fair, Romana 1 and 2 have never been shy about blurting out the fact that they're not human in situations and scenarios where I thought for sure would have consequences, but more often than not it's just met with a, oh yeah? Interesting. Anyway, after a while, they reveal what Shada actually is, and I gotta admit, it got me. When the reveal came, I was like, no way, that is Shada? Gnarly. And you know what else looks gnarly? The villainous alien race featured in this story, called the Skagra, looks sick. Like metal alien porcupines. Just a quick correction, you'd think with all the hours of research and all these tabs open that I would have noticed that the main villain's name is Skagra and the aliens are called the Krugs. I got it way wrong. Oh no! They look awesome when they first appear in animation, and I was surprised at just how good they looked when they eventually showed up in live action later on in the story. Even if it was probably just, I don't know, cardboard and glitter or polystyrene. Oops, I've gone and mentioned the animation. You know what that means. Time for the Dirvinator to rag on classic Doctor Who animations. And while yes, I still think the animation is uncanny, borderline ugly at times, you do get used to it. And I suppose it's to the serial's benefit that it's constantly cutting between live action and back, so it doesn't feel as in your face. And I say constantly, I mean infrequently, because as I said at the start, about like 75 of this serial was already done, it's completed, so there's minimal animation used. In fact, the 3D rendered elements are genuinely great. They elevate the iffy 2D animated portions, and now I wholeheartedly believe in my original assumption that if these animation teams were just given more time, they are capable of creating something that's more than just mediocre. I used to think it was purely down to budget constraints, which, don't get me wrong, don't help, but perhaps the talent is there. It's a small team, you just gotta let them cook longer. We need to get back to the Macroterra quality animation. Big crib. Well, seeing as I'm on a roll talking about new editions, I might as well cover the returning voice cast for the unfilmed scenes. The fact that they really went through the monumental task and effort to gather all of the surviving original cast members to record previously unfilmed dialogue directly from the original script so that they could then animate over it is astounding. You know me, I love the fact that they went to this elderly woman who's retired, happily living her life, and saying, hey, remember when you voiced the Alpha Centauri like 50 odd years ago? Do you want to come back and do like 2 or 3 lines in the modern Series 10?
This is Alpha Centauri. Welcome to the universe.
And unlike some other efforts that have been made over the years to keep things as pure or, I think I've heard over-opinionated fans say, accurate to the source material with, well, mixed results. I cannot fault this one whatsoever. But again, that's like a whole can of worms separate to it. Like, I've heard some people say, no, we want things exactly as they were originally broadcast, faithfully recreated in animation. Like, I'm sorry, is the Abominable Snowman not better off having removed the blackface elements? Or would you rather have them kept the N-word in the Celestial Toymaker? Don't answer that. Getting back to the returning voice actors, they're on their A game. Everyone gives it their all. What, 38 years later? They must all be in their 60s and 70s by now. And yet, their love and passion for Shada shines through. You couldn't ask for better voice performances. Admittedly, some of the women's voices do sound considerably deeper and raspier, particularly in the bad guy's ship. So I could see people arguing that it's a bit distracting, but for me, the only time that sort of took me out of the moment was when it transitioned from live action to animation with the elderly voice in the same scene. It's kind of like, wait right here, I will check with my supervisor. Hello supervisor, how's it going? But like I said, it's not a negative, it's just something you can't help but pick up on. The men seem to have better luck matching their younger selves' vocal inflections. Probably because they're a bunch of old farts to begin with. But the villain almost sounds better. Like his voice is deeper, slower, dripping with villainous intent. Whoa, it's chilling. And I never thought I'd say this, but for authenticity's sake, bravo for bringing David Brierley back as K9. Despite my initial dislike for his performance, and admittedly I'm still not a fan, I commend them for avoiding the temptation to just bring John Leeson in to redub all his original lines and then record the new audio, like they seem to be doing all the time by bringing Nicholas Briggs in to voice previously established and voiced characters. I swear Nicholas Briggs is about to voice every alien and creature in the show at this point. Coming soon, Nicholas Briggs as Marco Polo. On that thought, and this might be a bit controversial, I think that maybe having the option to watch through season 17 with John Leeson's K9 vocals might have been cool for continuity's sake, as long as it was done with both actors' permission and it was a toggleable option switched off by default, like the optional enhanced CGI effects. But the box set's already out, so doubt that'll ever happen. Unless John Leeson's still alive in 20 years' time when they release the 8K AI upscaled complete classic collection box set for $1,000, in which case, hey, go nuts! The more I think about it, the more I'm warming up to Shada, thanks to the overwhelming effort it took them to finally finish it decades later. Plus, it certainly helps that it is a generally good story. So often during this overly long Fourth Doctor tenure, I find myself referring to serials as just solid. It's a word I've used numerous times as a balance between my objective viewpoints that the story has merit and my subjective feeling that it's alright. But regardless of all external factors, I still reckon Shada would have been fondly remembered, even if it was finished and released as the finale to season 17 as originally intended. It may not have been one of the greats, but I mean, hey, if City of Death can be a top 3 contender, then anything can. Except the Mutants, and the Crusade, and Pyramids of Mars. Before I touch on the plot's conclusion, I just wanted to stress that I really like this cast of characters. Whether it was because I had to pay more attention to keep track of which character was which when it switched from live action to animation, or because I got to know them more intimately through watching the behind-the-scenes documentary, either way, they are really good characters. They serve the narrative well, and while some admittedly get left to the wayside after a while, others get some honest-to-goodness character development and motivation. The easy highlight for me has to be the Professor. I'm starting to notice a trend of me becoming endeared to slightly quirky old grandfather-like characters who dither about with such an infectious energy without being annoying. Professor Travers, the William Hartnell clone from the last serial, the censor rights. But for real, I love this guy. Much like Drax from last season's finale, The Armageddon Factor, I really wish we got to see more than just one appearance from this Time Lord. He's certainly more interesting than the White and Black Guardian so far. As always, one of my favourite things I like to keep an eye out for when watching a serial for the first time is clever and cool sci-fi concepts. I love a neat idea that sparks imagination and creativity. Like, for instance, the whole time-travelling out of order that I mentioned earlier, where the Doctor arrives at this location and is greeted like a familiar, regular friend, despite him only being there maybe once or twice before. Or how about that book that's not actually a book, and if you turn the pages while inside the console room, you can manipulate the TARDIS to take you to a secret location. It's nonsense, but I love it. There's something I wish the modern series did more of. Don't get me wrong, we still get plenty of nonsensical ideas, but most of them are just dumb. Like sprinting Cybermen or magic snow. Ah well, As long as some people find it fun, I won't hate on it too much. Like, some people actually like space babies. Not me. Oh yeah, I said I'd mention the ending. No spoilers, but it's quite sudden and not particularly fulfilling. I mean, it kinda can't help but be a bit of an anticlimax, given all this build-up and legacy behind it. And while it's not fair to use external factors against it, I wouldn't be surprised if some people found that really disappointing. For me, I thought it was an example of one of those creative sci-fi ideas that didn't quite stick the landing. It's like they wrote themselves into a corner and they're like, oh crap, how are we gonna wrap this up? Canine, shoot your laser snout for the millionth time. It's a bit like the Sonic Screwdriver's get out of jail free card. I mean, heck, the characters would have been absolutely screwed if Canine wasn't there. And that's it for the story, the characters, the ideas. I've talked about the music, and the acting is pretty superb overall. There's a mixture of excitement and thoughtful contemplation. Like pretty much every serial, this could have easily been trimmed down to a really tight 4-part story. Nevertheless, I'm happy to say that this resurrected gem is well worth a watch. But wait, in this one scene, the actress drops her handbag way too early before she bumps into the other guy, who proceeds to grab her aggressively like this is a horror movie. 0 out of 10, I guess. Worse than The Timeless Child. Before I wrap this up, I would like to emphasize that despite the absolute nightmare it was for me personally to figure things out and get my disc to work properly, I don't hold any strong negative feelings towards any part of Shada. Regardless of the whole bigger picture legacy, I enjoyed it quite a lot. But when you take into consideration everything that went into this project, it's something truly special. The top-notch animation, for classic Who standards, the returning voice cast, the continued enthusiasm of the creative minds behind it, both then and now. Shada is a shining example of turning trash into treasure. And although it was brief, seeing Tom Baker in costume inside the TARDIS again was a magic moment. And a massive thank you to GameGeek812 for recommending that I check out the Making and Breaking of Shada documentary. It was a fascinating and wholesome look into the goings-on behind the scenes when they were putting the story together back before it was cancelled. Seeing what the crew went through, the obstacles they had to overcome, the unwavering dedication to see it through. Sure, it's devastating to hear how they all felt when it was finally officially cancelled, but bearing in mind, this doco was made when the serial was finally released in a semi-complete state, so it does have an uplifting conclusion. I thoroughly enjoyed sitting through the whole special feature. The absolute highlights for me have to be the heartwarming tale of a couple meeting on set, getting together, and still being married to this day. And the anecdote about a group of young lads that somehow managed to get their little school a cappella group in an episode by sheer chance. Imagine that, bumping into a producer at the pub and being like, "Oh, you're filming Doctor Who tomorrow? Can we be in it? We've got a choir so we can sing a little song and everything." Classic. Even though every time I hear their little ballad, I can't help but mishear the lyrics as, well, something I would never say. Also, for what it's worth, it was so nice to see Tom Baker talk candidly about how he was aware of how insufferable he could be back when he played the Doctor. It obviously doesn't absolve him of his dickish behaviour, but it is refreshing to see someone acknowledge and regret and move on from that sort of thing. People have mentioned that in my comments before, so it was nice to finally see it for myself. Gee, I wonder if William Hartnell ever had such a revelation. Probably not. I am so glad Shada was finished. This is probably the third most difficult review I've had to do, behind The Pyramids of Mars for having to justify my distaste towards specific elements in a fan favourite story, and The Talons of Wing Chiang for struggling to articulate my thoughts on a very delicate subject. In this case, however, I was just so damn sick for so damn long, and it took me ages to figure out what probably was basic information. So please, please, if you already know exactly which version of Shada is which, and how many versions there are definitively, and how I'm an absolute idiot for not getting it immediately, please, keep it to yourself. And, on top of that, this script is about 3 times as long as my usual review script. I've never taken a full week to write a review script before. Normally it's done in an afternoon. And even filming this, as I said, I had to spread over several days. It's quite the undertaking. I cannot wait to not be sick anymore. Because yes, even now, 1 month, 1 week and several days later, still crook. But I also can't wait for what comes next. And what comes next, you may ask? Well, it's the 4th Doctor's final season. Season 18. I've heard less than stellar things about it. But hey, we're in the 80s now. The decade that killed the show, at least for a while. New characters, new companions, new villains, new doctors, new favourites. I wonder who my next favourite companion will be.
Oh, Ace.
Oh yeah, probably. Thank you so much to my regular viewers for your incredible patience, especially to the 1 or 2 of you who have said that you're watching the classic series week to week along with me to coincide with my reviews. I am so sorry, but I hope you guys have been enjoying season 18 and 19, and a massive thank you for the positive reception on my Doctor Who Worlds of Wonder exhibition video. That one was a pain in the butt to edit, but I'm so pleased with how it turned out. That was a tough one as well, because it took place on my brother's birthday, who passed away at the start of the year. My family came down to visit me and we decided we were going to do something fun on that day, otherwise we'd just sit around crying the whole time. So that was a tough day. And then I got really sick a couple of days afterwards, and I'm still sick now. But hey, I want to say next week, season 18, but I honestly don't know. Like, this project that I'm doing now, the Shada review, has taken so much out of me. I don't want to say I'm burnt out again, because I just had like a month off, but there are projects that I would love to do this year that aren't Doctor Who related, but like every other year since I started this channel, I just won't go through with them, even though I really wish that I could just find the drive and motivation to do it. But that's why I am so pleased I've managed to keep up with this series for so long. I mean, we're I think in total about 111 reviews in, maybe more if you include books and spin-offs and stuff. And yeah, I'm proud of myself in that sense, that I've managed to keep up with it. I honestly don't know if I'll be back next week with my usual weekly upload schedule to start my season 18 reviews. I could still be sick, or busy, or overthinking and stressing about making a new video intro, or just really tired. But either way, I am very excited and keen to get back into it as soon as possible. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and hopefully you'll catch me next time. 17 pages, damn.
Why? It's a museum. I've always felt at home in museums.
You know, I really think you might.
Beat you,